Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District. It is Tuesday, April 16th at 5:01 p.m. If I could, in a moment, ask you all to stand for the pledge, and I would like to call up Scott Viteri from Chaparral High School, who will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Viteri. Okay, I'll have a roll call, please, starting from my right.
George Jackson.
Bonnie Sneed.
Barbara Perleberg.
Denny Brown.
Pam Kirby. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do any of the board members have any changes they'd like to request? So, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted? Do
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Board Member Brown, seconded by Board Member Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Student and staff recognition and celebrations. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and the community for being here this evening. We have some incredible celebrations happening in Scottsdale schools. It's hard to believe that everybody had to have their taxes in last night by midnight, and we are moving on towards the end of the year. That will happen very quickly. First, Dr. Mitch Von Echten is going to come up and recognize Mr. Chris Brandt, who has received a great recognition in our robotics program.
If I could please have Mr. Brandt join me at the podium. Madam President, Governing Board members, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, it's my pleasure tonight to make this announcement for a very special teacher. Mr. Brandt's a science teacher at Saguaro High School and has been recently named Arizona First Robotics Teacher of the Year at the First Arizona Regional Robotics Competition that was held at Hamilton High recently. This award was based on an essay written by his students. FRC combines the excitement of sport with the rigors of science and technology. Under strict rules, limited resources, and time limits, teams of students are challenged to raise funds, design a brand, hone teamwork skills, build a program, build robots to perform prescribed tasks against a field of competitors. This year, the task was to build a robot that could throw a frisbee and climb a tower. I can attest that it's quite an amazing feat. I was there and watched. Incredible, just incredible the work of these students. This is as close to real-world engineering as a student can get. Through Chris's leadership, the Saguaro team has won 2 prestigious awards, Gracious Professionalism and #1 in Pit Safety. So, Chris, congratulations and thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. Your students are doing a great job, and it's exciting to see them out there competing and really stepping up. So thank you for all the time you spend doing that. I can tell you the kids think the world of you, so thank you. Next, we have Jill Campos, who's going to come up and talk about an incredible trip that took place over spring break with a group of our students that represented all of our high schools.
Very much. I want you to know Becky Calball did her job. She gave me a script, and anyone that knows me knows I don't script well. I think I even wrote it myself. But quickly, to let you know that between March 9th and what was to be March 18th, it turned into March 19th. We don't want to talk about me in the Atlanta airport at 2 a.m. in the morning. But we had a wonderful, wonderful trip to Marrakesh, Morocco. And I cannot thank, first of all, Dr. Jeff Thomas and Dr. David Peterson enough for last-minute heroics to make sure we could have our trip. And I want to thank the school board and the community and the amazing parents who sent with us 9 students that you would have been so, so proud of every single step of the way. From the Majorelle Gardens, established by a French artist, to a Berber village, seeing a water system delivered for the first time to homes and seeing the sheep wander in the little roads. Don't touch the sheep, I kept saying, don't touch the sheep. But to schools, public schools, private schools, the Center for Language and Culture, our State Department's amazing institution over there, where they sat in on seminars, offered up seminar contributions on minorities in America and religion, to just an amazing homestay experience. They were absolutely stellar. Polite, grateful, thankful, absorbing, sharing, wonderful, wonderful kids. So thank you. And also, of course, the connection with our languages. They got to see a lot of French interpreting going on, which gave them an idea of a possibility for career even. They heard the Arabic. They are expanded, widened, deepened kids who couldn't have made you more proud. I again thank the community, the school board, our administrators, and you wonderful parents. Maybe you'd like to know their names. We had, if you're here, Stan will help me, Christina Liu from Coronado, wave please. Lily Strider from Chaparral. Who else is there? Juan Baena, are you here? Thank you, Juan, from Coronado. Lily Donenworth from Arcadia. Any of you others here? We also had Christian Guevara from Arcadia, am I right, kids? Then we had sisters Gabby and Lauren, and they've got a double S name, Gerber Manning from Chaparral. We also had Lily Donenworth, did I mention you already? Arcadia. And I'm trying to think, Risa Stewart, are you here? From Arcadia. Did I miss somebody? Lauren Jansen, of course. Is she here? From Arcadia. That's it. Thanks again, community, parents, board, and administrators. They were fabulous. Please applaud them.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you for our sister cities and the city of Scottsdale for helping make that happen. Next, I'm very excited to announce Mrs. Gail Holland is here to introduce a wonderful, wonderful group of individuals that are truly national winners.
I have a big outside voice, so I think I'm good. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, I am very proud to present Chaparral's varsity cheer line, along with their coach, Mrs. Shelley Singer. So our cheer line competed in the middle of March. They went to Anaheim to compete in the USA Spirit Nationals at the Anaheim Convention Center. They took the national championship in large varsity show cheer advanced division. So 20 girls competed during this. The varsity cheer program won several regional first place titles this year. They also won first place at the Arizona State Cheer and Pom Championship at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. They also have a 5-man all-girl stunt team that took first at that same national competition. This is their third national competition since 2009, and we have a certificate to present to Coach Singer. And I am very, very proud. They're not only are they talented athletes, they're also wonderful students and very positive role models on campus. And we're very proud of them, and thank you for recognizing them tonight.
Again, congratulations, Chaparral High School. You guys are doing great things over there. Next, we have Ms. Chris Irwin, who's going to come up and talk about service learning. And our service learning students continue to give back to our community. And there was another activity just recently that they rose up again and really made a difference to the folks out there. Chris?
Hi. Good evening, Madam President and governing board members, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. The reason I am here is our service learning students in Sarah Teller's class at Arcadia High School and Chris Young's class at Saguaro High School contributed their writings to this year's collections of stories that are published in the Veterans Heritage Project book, Since You Asked, Volume 9. This book will be placed in the Library of Congress. The students interviewed and videotaped veterans as part of the process. This gives the students an opportunity to show the importance of connecting our future with our history and making cross-generational connections. Our student from Arcadia is Ariana Asar. And our student from Saguaro High School was Chenny Greguska. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and our service learning students for taking care of our veterans and writing about their stories, because I think that's very valuable as we move forward. Next, we have Mr. Mike Miller, who's going to present a couple things. One is our Arizona Dance Education Organization recognition, and then followed of that is our All-State students that have won recognition at the All-State competition for performing arts.
Madam President, school board members, Dr. Peterson and Sandra, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to be here this evening to present to you these recognitions. First of all, I'd like to start with congratulations to the Arcadia Dance Company, which earned top honors at the Arizona High School Dance Festival on February 16th. The festival is sponsored by the Arizona Dance Education Organization, and more than 35 high school dance programs throughout the state participated. For the second year in a row, the Arcadia High School group earned the ranking of distinction in all three categories of choreography, performance, and technique. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure. Oh, and I should also mention that the Arizona Dance Educators Association received the Governor's Art Award for Best Organization and an award ceremony on Wednesday, March 6th. Denise Rapp, our Arcadia dance teacher, and she's here this evening. And Denise, if you would stand up or work your way. I know I saw her back there. Was a founding member of the Arizona Dance Educators Association and its first president. They're under the umbrella of the National Dance Education Organization and is the sponsoring agent of the National Honor Society for Dance Arts, of which Arcadia, Coronado, Desert Mountain, and Saguaro dance programs are all chapters and induct eligible dance students into the organization each year. Our other dance instructor that I would like to recognize is Liza Noriega, a dance teacher at Desert Mountain High School, was awarded the Bill Evans Excellence in Teaching Award by the Arizona Dance Educators Organization. This is a highly prestigious award that is given to a teacher who creates a sense of community in the classroom and a sense of trust in which students can experience change or transformation. Liza has been described by a colleague as a teacher who creates a classroom environment where all students feel not just safe, but free and open to express themselves while learning and growing. They learn that dance is not just dispensed to them, but rather that they are part of the creative and expressive process. They assume ownership and start to develop into artists as they are now dancers. And I would also like to add for Liza, she was just inducted, I believe it was last weekend, into the WGAZ, that's the Winter Guard Arizona National Hall of Fame, for all of her 31 years, I believe, of experience and time of teaching with that organization as well. So Liza is truly a benefit to our district as well as to her students and through the dance program, and also reaches out throughout the entire state to lots of people. So Denise, and I don't know if Liza's here or not, so I would like you to recognize them as well one more time. And the dancers that are there, and there we go. And Denise is holding up flyers of her upcoming May 2nd and 3rd, right? Right, dates of their dance concert, so absolutely. The other recognition I would like to take the opportunity to meet deals with our all-state students that have been selected through a dual audition process. I'd like to congratulate, and as students that are here, if you would kind of come work your way up and maybe on this side as I call and recognize you. To the following students who auditioned and were selected to participate in the Arizona Music Educators Association High School All-State Festival. Each student selected has gone through a two-step audition process to achieve this status, and which began back at the end of January. The following students were selected to participate in the high school All-State Choir. They are Mallory Gibson of Chaparral High School, Scott Viteri of Chaparral High School, Kelsey, Ishimatsu Jacobson from Desert Mountain High School, Ian Allred from Saguaro High School, Emmett LaFay from Saguaro High School, and Brad Duchesne from Saguaro High School. The following students were selected to participate in the high school All-State Band, and they are Lauren Henry from Chaparral High School, Marissa Fireman from Chaparral High School, Connor Jennison, Chaparral High School, Austin Yu, Desert Mountain High School, and Stephen Holzer, Desert Mountain High School, who early in the year was also selected through the audition process to participate in the high school All-State Jazz Band as well back in January. The students that were selected in the high school all-state orchestra to participate in that organization are Harrison White from Saguaro High School and Grayson Meadows from Saguaro High School. And I'd also like to recognize their teachers, if they're here this evening as well, who helped them to achieve this point in time in their career. And I'd like to recognize Lisa Blasi from choral director at Chaparral High School, Jennifer Moreau, who's the band director at Chaparral High School, Michelle Irvin, band director at Desert Mountain, Bonnie Bazan, choral director at Desert Mountain, Galen Tutnick, choral director at Saguaro High School, and Eileen Wright, orchestra director at Saguaro High School. The All-State Music Festival will take place at NAU this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and it will involve 2.5 very intense days of rehearsal, and with performances beginning at 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon in Ardrey Auditorium on the NAU campus. And in retrospect for these students, I would simply tell you that we had a great experience in our arts area just recently with our middle school orchestra festival that we helped to rekindle our partnership with the Scottsdale Center for the Arts. And some of these students have participated in something similar to that coming through our program. So it's very important that we work to support our students as well as we can through all of our programs that we have. So thank you very much, and glad that we are able to recognize our students and our teachers for all of their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, students. You guys are doing a great job, and we truly appreciate all the hard work you've put in and all the time your parents have spent taking you back and forth to practices to get that accomplishment. Next, we do have a sea of green out in our audience this evening, and we want to have Margaret Cerna, our wonderful principal of Tavan Elementary School, come up and introduce the parenting education and literacy class that's going on.
Carolyn Rep, where are you? Okay, Madam President Kirby, all board members, Dr. Peterson and Sandra, I am very proud to present to you the first graduates of the Parent Education and Basic Computer classes in English. Parents attended the Parent Education classes for 20 weeks and the Basic Computer classes for 3 weeks. This program was in collaboration with SPI and was funded by our EIS department. Thank you, Carolyn Rep, for the opportunity. I'm going to say it in Spanish now in honor of our guests. Tavan está muy orgullosos presentarles el primer clase de graduados de clase de educación de padres y también clases de computadores. Clases de los padres eran por 20 semanas y clases por las computadoras por 3 semanas. La programa era con SPI y pagado por SUSD EIS Department, Carolyn Rep. Gracias, Dr. Peterson. Gracias, Claudia Hernandez, the facilitator. Gracias a Beatriz Luna, la maestra, teacher from SPA. Come here, you belong with us. And these are our graduates. We have Julia Vidriales, Griselda Hernandez, Guadalupe Vargas, Luisa Munoz, Rosa Carrera, Lisbeth Lopez, Rosario Hernandez, Janet Hernandez, Graciela Ibarra, Araceli Martinez. Did I forget anybody? Felicidades. Now they'll be getting ready to leave and go back to their English classes, so congratulations.
Thank you, Carolyn, and all the folks that are just truly making a difference in our community. It's really nice to see that we are reaching from cradle all the way through adults, and we're doing great things out there. The last celebration this evening, Ms. Sela Cypress is going to come up and talk about the Hoop of Learning program at Scottsdale Community College. And we have some incredible things happening with our Native American program, and we're very, very proud of it. And Sheila is doing a wonderful job of really building those connections with the community. So thank you, Sheila.
Actually, Dr. Peterson, it's Cypress. Madam President, board members, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. I wanted to introduce that this is a fantastic year that we've had with our College Bridge program with SEC with our Native American students. This year is the first year that Scottsdale School District has overcome the other school districts participating in this one particular program. So we're very proud of that. They make up half of our student bodies. The Hoop of Learning program is a Native American high school to college bridge program that's offered through the American Indian program at Scottsdale Community College. It was designed to eliminate financial barriers that Native Americans face while targeting high school students to transition to college setting. Students take 1 or 2 classes a semester in addition to the regular all-day high school class load. At no charge, there is no book charge, tuition, food, buses, things like that, so it's been a great beneficial thing. The program provides them a better understanding of college, allows them to take culturally relevant curriculum, increases retention in higher education, and empowers these students to be better leaders in their high school environment. Some other benefits are that these students earn college credit before graduating from high school, participate in activities that enhance personal growth, and interact with other Native American students from other schools and other districts. Unfortunately, tonight we have only the 5 here that were able to attend this evening, but normally there would be 15 participants this year. So we're very proud. These kids have been helping out, and they've been helping out with the literacy program. They're also in our Native American high school chant clubs. And I wanted to take special time and recognition to thank Carolyn Repp, who is the English Immersions Director that we are umbrellaed under. She's been very supportive. She sees the kids, and I wanted to express our appreciation for her. Marty Long, if you would stand up, please. She is at Coronado High School. She's our Native American liaison. She pushes these kids. She follows them. She is the second mother to most of these students. We also have Sonia Artero-Hanley and Martha Kreutzberg at Arcadia, but unfortunately we're not able to make it this evening. So these are the wonderful things that we're doing so far. We've got more to come in the years rolling out. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sheila. We also have a few parents in the back. We'd like to recognize the parents for their support of their kids.
Yes,
so
sorry.
let's have our parents stand up there. Thank you, Madam President. That concludes our celebrations for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Ms. Como, do I have all the cards? Okay, thank you. Now is the time for public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the public to address the governing board on matters not on the agenda. Personal attacks upon board members, staff personnel, or other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board are not acceptable. In conformance with open meeting laws, the governing board may not discuss or take action tonight on any matters raised that are not on the agenda. However, the governing board may respond to direct criticism, ask staff to review the matter, or ask that it be placed on a future agenda. As a reminder, each speaker will have 3 minutes. I encourage you to pay attention to Board Member Brown here. He has the signage. And then we're also going to stick with the protocol that we started at the last meeting, where we'll have 1 speaker up at the microphone and then 1 on deck, so we can move through the comments pretty quickly. So I'd like to first call up to the microphone Jerry Smith, followed by Chris Asmussen. On deck, please.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, for 50 years, the Scottsdale Unified School District and the Scottsdale Education Association have worked together to create the finest teacher employment agreement in the state. As a result, this district has enjoyed exceptional relations between management and employees. Why would we want to change that relationship? During this time, in some years, teachers have won benefits and rights, and in some years, we've suffered setbacks. Never, however, in all of those years have we regretted participating in the process. Furthermore, we cannot remember within our collective memories when administration has bypassed the process. That is, not until this year, when it has happened at least twice. It may well be that upon the conclusion of Meet and Confer this year, the teachers will not have realized any significant gain beyond the budget presented to teachers today. That's not our point. Our point is that we insist that the district Meet and Confer team return to the table and that district administration adhere to the agreed upon practices contained in the teacher employment agreement. Show us some respect, and we believe agreement can be reached during this difficult era. Thank you very much.
Smith. Next up is Chris Asmussen, followed by Roni Asali on deck, please.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Canelani, and Mrs. Como. I am Chris Asmussen. Oh, I am so sorry, Dr. Peterson. I didn't even catch that. And Ms. Como. All right, sorry about that. I am Chris Asmussen. I'm the co-president of SAA. First, I'd like to thank each member of the board for finding time over the past several weeks to talk individually with SAA, either in person or over the phone. You, along with district leadership, have a daunting task ahead of you to make up a significant budget deficit, as well as to keep cuts as far away from classrooms and children as possible. As you grapple with your decisions, SAA asks you to consider the important roles that our assistant principals play at each of our school sites, and that these cuts to assistant principals are very close to the classroom and very close to students. It was very eloquently stated at last month's board meeting by Mrs. O'Boyle that the entire administrative team is responsible for carrying out the vision of the school and setting climate and culture of our campus. Our district over the past several years has embraced the role of the assistant principal and has increased their responsibility to provide educational leadership. During the leadership of Dr. Barrissey, we held to an 80-20 model. 80% of the assistant principal's role was to be operational and 20% educational leadership. Under Dr. Catalani and continuing today under Dr. Peterson, we have shifted to a 50-50 model where 50% of the assistant principal's time is educational leadership. Assistant principals are charged with evaluating teachers, coordinating textbooks, and coordinating pre- and post-testing, benchmark tests, and this week aims. They are a direct resource to the teacher by first providing coaching to improve teaching and learning through the evaluation process and just being there for teachers as a resource provider. They are someone who can get the right textbook in the right hands at the right time. As we assess students at the beginning of the term to see what kind of prior knowledge our students have, we conduct benchmark testing throughout the year to determine if we need to adjust our teaching, and then again at the end of the year to measure our growth. The assistant principal keeps the test security, schedules tests, and assists with getting the results of the test back into the hands of the teachers to adjust instruction. Assistant principals have played a vital role in our district attaining an A profile. Assistant principals provide supervision in the lunchroom, on the playground, in the hallway, and all over our campuses. They are charged with the emergency response plans of our schools and issue consequences when the code of conduct has been violated. But more importantly, they are mentors, they are role models to our students, and often conduct their business walking from one classroom to another with a student. And in these one-on-one roles, they're as much a counselor as they are a disciplinarian. I know that you know all of these things, and again, SAA understands the difficult decisions that are ahead of you. Again, that we ask you to consider the role of site-based leadership, the assistant principals, the counselors, and the nurses, and their very important role in supporting the classroom teachers and our students. Thank you.
Mr. Asali, and next up is Tommy Burke.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about kind of what's been happening over the last, I guess, weekend. So with 301 monies, as you may have heard, there's some decisions that had to be made. So as an SEA, we felt that it'd be very important to survey the teachers to see if there's a clear answer as to what they want to do with the 301 monies that taxpayers a while ago had voted would go to those teachers. When we had sent out the survey and as we collected the results, we realized that there really wasn't a very clear decision. And I mean, it's a very emotional decision because it's almost asking teachers, pay mortgage, save a teacher. So it really is a torn group for the most part, as it should be. The problem, however, is for this money to get approved, 70% of all certified staff that qualify have to vote on it. So after looking at the survey, it became pretty apparent to SEA that it would almost be impossible to send something out where teachers, as 70% of them, would approve it. So with that said, there's a bright light on the horizon, I think, because we have a budget committee that is made up of really invested and committed people. And they are really looking at everything to try to keep cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. And when they finish their work in just a few weeks here, the budget deficit could only be at $5 million. It could only be at $3 million. It could be completely gone. We don't know that yet, but I believe that sending out a proposal now before we know how much worth of cuts the budget committee is able to do, and asking teachers to choose either a paycheck or to save a teacher doesn't really hold enough bearing at a time where teachers are torn between what decision they're going to make. So I just wanted to come up here to tell you that I think we should let the budget committee do what it is that they were charged with in the first place, which is keep cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. I also think that we should let the process that Jerry so wonderfully talked about and the meet and confer teams from both sides of the district do what it is that they were originally charged with, which is come up with a plan, because at the end of this, to get the approval and to make sure that this passes, we really are going to need to work together as SEA and SUSD to make sure that we minimize cuts in the classroom and we minimize any sort of pay cuts that have to occur to our staff as well. Thank you.
Tommy Burke. And then next is Melissa, I'm going to probably mess this up, Wedger? Okay, thank you. You're up next. Go ahead.
Governing board members, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, thanks for listening to me once again. Our district is in turmoil, and it's literally breaking my heart. I don't know where to place blame, nor do I even want to. I am a nurse, and I only want to fix it and make it all better. These are admittedly tough times, and I know that sometimes nurses are considered a luxury or non-essential staff member. I want to stress that in tough times, it is more crucial than ever to save RNs. Why? A well-trained RN can quickly identify, assess, and take the necessary steps to ensure that a child remains in school through prompt medical intervention and, if necessary, referrals. Keeping kids in school, learning, is what brings funds in to keep our district functioning. This same RN also provides guidance and a sense of continuity and comfort to our district parents, allowing them to feel confident that their child's healthcare needs are being met by a healthcare professional. The RN is the conduit between doctors, parents, and students, providing preventive and acute care and managing medically complex students in the school environment. It goes without saying that those parents which value the skilled nursing services our district has always provided have a choice as to which district, private or charter school, in which to enroll their students. The potential loss of students to our district would be devastating. A well-trained RN can properly assess industrial injuries, promote staff wellness activities, provide counseling and health education, and help keep our teachers in the classroom, doing what they do best, teaching. As our district insurance costs rise, the RN is a vital element in providing health care to our teachers and staff members. One of the costliest areas to a nearby school district that recently experienced nursing cuts was the astronomical rise in the cost of industrial injury claims, because they lacked a skilled medical professional to triage and assess the injuries. I have presented our governing board members and the executive team with concrete, well-researched, implementable plans for making nursing services more comprehensive, cost-efficient, and streamlined. I have provided all of the details necessary to make this happen, and I'm only waiting for their go-ahead to start the process. There is absolutely no reason to cut nurses. Whatever negligible cost savings that might be realized would quickly dissipate in the wake of increased student absences, decline in enrollment, rising costs of industrial injuries, and frankly, the potential for catastrophic medical outcomes. I am laying it all on the line here. This is one budget cut that could literally cost the life of a student or staff member. Please think this through and make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Melissa, and then Francis Burrell.
Hello. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Sandra. This afternoon, teachers from all sites were called into an emergency meeting after school. We watched a brief video in which Dr. Peterson laid out a way to prevent the cuts to elementary art, music, PE, as well as maintain our base salary, our health benefits, and prevent the RIF of over 100 teachers by using the extra 301 money that the district will be receiving. Dr. Peterson, in your message, you spoke of a time growing up in the Midwest and about how your community came together to rebuild after a tornado. I agree with your sentiment, and I do believe that the American spirit is stronger than any obstacle that we may face. In times of need, communities do come together in extraordinary ways. Today, we were asked to come together as a community. We were asked to vote for a plan that would save the jobs of our peers and at the same time maintain our status quo. I personally find this method of presentation to be manipulative and heavy-handed. Of course, we care for one another. None of the teachers in this district want to see anybody lose their job. And if we were indeed in the aftermath of a tornado, we would absolutely step up to help one another. However, the tornado has not hit yet. It is my understanding that the Budget Committee has 2 more meetings and has not come to a final recommendation. It is also my understanding that the Ross Group, Respect Our Scottsdale Students, has created an alternative that could save the district millions of dollars without affecting the classroom. Additionally, I am told that SEA has expressed a desire to continue the process of finding acceptable cuts by working with the Budget Committee and through the meet and confer process before any proposed packages related to the 301 monies is on the table. I'm here to respectfully ask that all members of the governing board to table the decision on a budget proposal until all options are exhausted. There is no need to rush into a decision at this time. Please respect the work and the upcoming proposals that the Budget Committee will have. Respect the meet and confer process. Respect the recommendation of the Ross Parent Group, and please respect your teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Burrell.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Peterson, members of the board. We are here representing Scottsdale's Sister Cities organization, and recently we had a high school student exchange with our sister city in Alamos, Sonora, Mexico. And I would like to introduce 2 of our students, Lily Donenworth from Arcadia High School and Juan Baena from Coronado. And they will share some comments about our exchange, and then I would like to talk about one of our wonderful schools. Just a moment.
Good evening. My name is Juan Baena, and I'm a senior at Coronado High School. And this is...
Hi, I'm Lily Donenworth. I'm a sophomore at Arcadia High School.
And together, we will be sharing a student exchange a recent student exchange that benefited our school district as well as the community. So Lily and I are members of Scottsdale Sister Cities Association, which specializes in international exchanges. And 2 weeks ago, we were able to host 9 students from Alamos, Mexico, in our school district. The purpose of this was to exchange cultures, beliefs, interests, food, and also school education. And Lily will be sharing with you the activities that were done in school as well as the community.
Hi, I'd also like to add that on April 2nd and 3rd, we had the pleasure of having our host students attend high school with us. And not only did we have them attend our classes, we showed them around the campus, we had them meet our principal, and we also, most importantly, we had them attend our international club. I say this is so important because in Alamos, at their high school, they don't have an international club. So we thought it was really important for them to experience what it is like to have an international club, you know, what we do in it, and we were really willing to answer any questions that they had about it. So when they do go back to Alamos, they can start forming an international club. Lastly, we, on behalf of myself and Scottsdale Sister Cities, we would really like to thank and appreciate not only Dr. Peterson, but all of you for your support with this exchange. Well, not only with this exchange, but every exchange, because I believe that the educational exchange is more important than the actual culture, because it's a matter of learning, you know, how different cultures are. And I know it's a because I had the opportunity last fall to go to Alamos, and I know their school is a lot different. So I was really happy that they got to experience American high school. Thank you.
I would like to share with you our visit. While these two were in school on Friday, we went to Pueblo Elementary, and we literally had a Spanish language conversational class because the 9 students from Alamos and the 6th graders from Pueblo Elementary, the Spanish immersion, they got together, and it was the best. Also, later on, we were at the gazebo in McCormick Ranch Park, which is an exact replica of the gazebo in Alamos, Sonora, in their plaza. So there's a lot of, it's the best. So our group just was up on the screen, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone who believes they turned in a blue card that has not had their name called? Okay, that concludes public comments. Dr. Peterson, superintendent comments.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This evening we have some additional areas that we would like to recognize. First and foremost, I would like to just have us all think about and reflect upon the tragedy that happened this week at the Boston Marathon. It truly was something that was a terrorist act on our country, no matter where it came from. And some good people have been hurt. Some very good friends of our employees here in the district have been hurt. Several of them are losing limbs. And so we just want to stop and reflect, because it truly hits home when these types of things happen to all of us, and it just was not good news at all. Moving forward, there are some good news that I would just like to share with you. First and foremost, I would like to have Mr. Rick Freeman and Patty Bilbrey step up, and John Muir step up to the microphone, because we have a recognition that we would like to provide for our support staff. Our support staff in Scottsdale schools work tirelessly to serve and motivate. They are vital contributors in today's team-oriented work environment, and they are the key frontline public relations ambassadors for our district. We invest in training and development so that they'll have the best opportunity to excel in a 21st century world and beyond. The purpose of Support Staff Week is to focus attention on the important role support staff play in our country, our future, and our school district. April 21st to 27th of this year is Support Staff Week, and April 24th is Administrative Professionals Days. So make sure that all of us that have administrative professionals plan that day out appropriately. But I'd like to provide this proclamation to our support staff leaders, and have you make sure that you recognize all of our support staff that every single day make a difference in the lives of kids in Scottsdale schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Peterson, members of the board, thank you very much, and we will make sure that all the people that support this school district are aware. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, I would like Tommy Burke to come up. You're not in trouble, Tommy. The week of May 6th through the 10th is National Teacher Appreciation Week in Scottsdale Unified. And as part of that, we have an additional celebration for National School Nurses Day that is part of that week, right in the middle of it on Wednesday. And our students truly do, Tommy, I believe, have a right to their health needs and safety while they're in schools. Our school nurses are professional nurses who advance the well-being, academic success, and lifelong achievements of all students by providing critical safety for our nation's most fragile children, and act as liaisons to the school community, parents, and healthcare providers on behalf of all of our children. School nurses support the health and educational success of children. They understand the link between health and learning. They are in a position to make a positive difference for leadership. The National Association of School Nurses celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishments of school nurses, and Scottsdale Schools does that also. On behalf of the governing board, we proclaim that May 8th, 2013 is National School Nurses Day in Scottsdale Unified School District.
Thank you. Can I approach the bench? Thank you all very much.
And then finally, I would like Mr. Roni Asali, our president of the Scottsdale Education Association, to come up. Because the week of May 6th to the 10th, as you heard, is National Teacher Appreciation Week. Our mission in Scottsdale is to deliver a world-class education promoting the highest level of academic achievement, creativity, personal growth that will inspire greatness in today's students and tomorrow's leaders. We are doing that every single day in Scottsdale schools. Our students truly will be the leaders of tomorrow. Our schools provide young people with the tools that they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. Scottsdale school teachers work tirelessly to serve and motivate our children. The success of teachers is reflected in the support given to them by their community. The purpose of National Teacher Appreciation Week is to focus attention on the important role educators play in our country and our future. Therefore, on behalf of the Governing Board, we proclaim the week of May 6th to the 10th is National Teacher Appreciation Week in Scottsdale Unified School District. Thank you, teachers. And then finally, we have a presentation and a video to honor the incredible work that is happening at Mojave Middle School and the success that we saw at the International PBIS Conference. So, Mojave? Oh, I thought we had the video. Well, we'll talk about the video if it's not on there.
Well, Madam President, members of the board,
All right.
Dr.
Jeff, we don't have the
Peterson.
video.
Okay, no video.
Just to quickly, okay, I'm getting handed all kinds of great things. Let me read for you first. Mojave Middle School presentation and videos were honored at the International PBIS Conference on March 28th. Mojave Middle School had the opportunity to represent the International PBIS Conference in San Diego. The same group of students that you saw that did our PBIS video, the Ghost Night Productions, those students went on to present. They weren't actually in San Diego, but their work went with them and truly became International Film Festival winners. We were able to hear from Dr. Yadira Flores, who helped Mojave with our journey through PBIS, and Ann Oxiger, our assistant principal, went to represent our school and to talk about the great things that we're doing. So on behalf of those two and our great teacher leaders that led our PBIS committee, and on behalf of the students, we thank you for honoring us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll see later this evening, Dr. Sakos is going to present information regarding an update of our student conduct results. And I can honestly tell you, PBIS is truly making a difference with all of our students, and you'll see that this evening. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and our public. Again, congratulations to all, and we are moving forward to have a great end of the year as the corner turns and finals will be here before we know it.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they'd like to remove? Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Second.
Moved by Board Member Sneed, seconded by Board Member Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Information and discussion items. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Our first presentation this evening will be by Dr. Melissa Sakos, and she is going to talk about the revisions to the Student Code of Conduct and some of the information that we have had as we've moved forward with some of the programs here.
All right, thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra, it is my pleasure to stand before you and represent and share with you the hard work of the Code of Conduct Committee, as well as the celebrations that we will share in terms of our PBIS schools who continue to make positive differences in student behavior and conduct. Before I get started, if there are any members from the committee, will you please stand up? Why, thank you for coming, Dr. Ballas. I think the rest are at home in their jammies. But it is noted on the board agenda, the representation of our committee, and this year 2 students from the Student Advisory Board were appointed to that, but their busy schedules and their active participation at their campus didn't allow them to attend the meetings, but we did have an opportunity to go to 2 Student Advisory Board meetings and gather great feedback from this group as well. So they definitely were represented. It's important to note that all of the work behind the Code of Conduct Committee and student services at large is aligned with board goal number 6, school safety and student support. And tonight you'll hear specifically how we continue to refine and implement specific prevention and intervention strategies to decrease antisocial behaviors in our youth. It's also important to note, and I provided a couple hyperlinks, so on your spare time, if you haven't had a chance, the work that we're doing here in SUSD aligns with state and national research. And the state research, most recently, ASU Morrison Institute for Public Policy, as well as the National Association of School Psychologists, when we talk about systematic approaches and promoting positive climate and culture on our campuses. The overview tonight, what I'll be covering is our Code of Conduct changes for consideration. We have content changes, we have clarifying language, and we naturally, as always, have process improvement, always intending to improve our practices. We'll have data analysis, looking at our AYS 2012 data, as well as our office discipline referrals, and we'll talk about how we're continuing to take action. In terms of our content changes, we are recommending that we add the language intent to determine the trigger when we automatically recommend students for an expulsion hearing specific to weapons and knife. So last year I stood before you and talked about decreasing the length of that knife from 3 inches to 1.5 inches, and through a year's reflection we have learned that that has prompted a zero tolerance on students that really is not what we need to be doing. And I'll give you an example. We have students who skate to and from school and pop out their willies using their small little knives, Swiss Army knives, and it's prompted us to again take another look at what triggers an automatic recommendation for an expulsion hearing. We have refined our threat assessment process, which does allow us to make informed decisions with bringing a number of stakeholders together. So we do want to make that change again so that we aren't enacting zero tolerance policies where really they should not be enacted. We last year separated, as you may recall, the middle school attendance from elementary school, and this year we're adding period by period attendance language for middle school students. So specifically looking at what those consequences may be for students when they're absent period by period, very parallel to high school. So again, getting them ready to gear up for high school. We want to add in the online language requirement just to align with the high school planning guide, and that is something that you approved with the high school planning guide presentation with Dr. Benson a few months ago. We want to add the use of surveillance language as stipulated by board policy. Again, just to reiterate that SUSD does have cameras on our campuses and use of surveillance does exist. We also want to add the nutrition and wellness standards stipulated by board policy. I'll be coming to you soon with our coordinated school health presentation, and again, we're just making sure that we are adding language to remind everybody about healthy eating and the health regulations from the state. And then last but not least, adding in some science and art safety language that is included in course syllabi on a year-to-year basis, again making sure that our code of conduct is very inclusive, and that is the one area that we have all of our behavioral expectations and rights. Clarifying language in the code, we are adding e-cigarette language to the tobacco section as it is considered a tobacco-like product, just to add that clarification. Also, Arizona, the Medical Marijuana Act does not authorize possessing or engaging in the use of marijuana on bus grounds. We added that language in the back in the appendix because it's important to make sure that we note that not even medical marijuana is allowed on our campuses. And then we also added some language for our bus misconduct to align with the work from the Transportation Task Force. And the Transportation Task Force has been led by Dr. Ballas this year and Bert Herzog, and it's amazing the work that they've done and they're getting ready to implement positive behavior supports on our buses. So we're very excited about that. Process improvement, our student release form, we did update the military recruiter language to notify parents that recruiters may participate in campus functions such as college fairs. So parents have always had the opportunity to opt out, but we wanted to make sure parents understood, like our colleges on campuses, they do participate in our college and career fairs, and just to make sure that we're very transparent. Addition of the option to release GPA and class rank to the military was also added in there for clarity. They too follow in the same lines as our colleges. Attendance letters add a synergy, consistency of application. I'm going to show you some data here that's great in terms of our attendance and tardies. We're going to continue to ensure that parents are properly notified so that we can increase attendance and decrease tardiness. Train our bus drivers to use the incident referral form rather than the current bus referral form, again, from the approach of a positive supports versus constantly being negative, so rewarding that positive behavior. We're going to ensure and want to ensure that there's consistency of the replacement costs for lost or stolen IDs of $5. That does not change, but we want to ensure that consistency across our school district, and continue to explore our online referral process in an attempt to improve efficiency on our campuses. In terms of district data, there's two sets I'm going to share with you tonight. The first one is our Arizona youth data, 2012, and it is taken by 8th, 10th, and 12th graders in the spring of the even years, so every 2 years. It assesses school safety, adolescent substance abuse, and also antisocial behavior. It is student perceptive data, and year after year we've aligned it and looked at our data as well, and we have every reason to believe that it's reliable and viable data. It is taken, again, by 8th, 10th, and 12th graders to assess what I had mentioned. And the first graph that I'm going to share with you here is for all of Scottsdale school districts. So I mentioned that 8th, 10th, and 12th graders took it. What I'm sharing with you is all of our data that we received back. So on the left-hand side of this graph, you see lifetime use, and on the right-hand side, it's 30-day use. We're happy that we've seen somewhat of a decline across the board with the exception of marijuana, which you note that it is above the state and federal level, and I'm going to talk about those results in just a minute. Again, overall, we've seen that decline. We are continuing to focus on the increase of marijuana at these levels and to make sure that we, too, are looking at where students are obtaining it and consistently applying the code of conduct in those areas. The next graph is binge drinking and driving, and antisocial behavior. Again, we've seen a decline in most of these categories across the board. The two areas that show an increase for us is sold illegal drugs and suspension, which you will see, again, aligns with what the office discipline referral data that I'm going to share with you. This risk profile is critical for us to share not only within our district, but our community and our families, because it tells us where the risks are in terms of family, community, school, and peer and individual. When we look at our school risk factors, low commitment to school and perceived risk of drug use are two of the concerns, and we've seen an increase in that. We like to see our risk profile decrease over the 3-year span. Where youth obtained alcohol, you can see in these categories that we have an increase of gave someone else money to buy it, another family member that's over 21, We've seen a dip in parent or guardian. Still, it's concerning that this is a way to obtain alcohol and got it at a party, again, in someone over 21 who acts over 21. Our office discipline referrals are used as a benchmark to determine student behavior around the district. They determine the need for targeted behavioral interventions at the individual school sites. So while I share with you district-wide data tonight, all of our school sites are looking at their school data. It also helps us understand how much instruction is lost due to misbehavior. So when you take it into consideration when a student is sent down to the office on a conduct referral, very conservatively, that's about 20-30 minutes, not only of administrative time, but also student loss of instruction. And this directly relates to student learning and achievement. Our data comparison, we're going to do semester 1 for the school year 11-12 and 12-13, and you can see that we saw a 13% increase across our district for office discipline referrals. When we disaggregated the data for our PBIS schools only, again comparing semester 1 from 11-12 to 12-13, you can see a 38% decrease in our office discipline referrals. So again, when we start drilling down to our schools that are using research-based programs and doing it with fidelity, we see a decrease. When we look at the attendance comparison, again, this has been a coordinated focus for us for the last couple of years. We're happy to report that we've seen a 72% decrease in tardies district-wide, and we've also seen a decrease in unexcused absences, truancy, and other attendance violations. The one increase that we have seen is leaving school grounds without permission. Alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, similar to the AYS data, the self-perceptive data, the one increase that we are seeing is drug violation, and this is specific to more the marijuana and other synthetic or non-synthetic drugs. Our behavioral ODRs, again, we're going to do a comparison from 2 school years. This is a span of August to March. And we see our behavior discipline referrals across the board mostly decrease with an increase in recklessness. So it's nice to see that our fighting has decreased a lot of these physical and verbal threats. Other discipline referrals are listed here. The one that stands out the most is our dress code violation. Yes, we are up 900% in dress code violations, and we're pretty confident that that has to do with the implementation of ID cards and categorizing of no ID card as a dress code violation. So we're looking at ways on how we can code that in our student information system so we can get a better picture of what's really a dress code violation versus insubordination with ID cards. So we're taking a look at that. District-wide suspensions from, again, that same window of time, August to March, comparing those 2 school years. We've seen an increase in out-of-school suspension and a decrease in in-school suspension. But on the contrary, when you look at our PBIS schools, we've seen an increase in in-school suspension and a decrease in out-of-school suspension. So we're keeping kids in school, still ensuring that they're at a safe place during the day, they have their work, and decreasing the time that they go out of school. So we're very pleased to see this trend as well in our PBIS schools. In summary, the content and clarifying changes support board policy and state legislation. You can tell that our concerted efforts toward implementation for PBIS has resulted in 38% decrease in office discipline referrals, a 12% decrease in out-of-school suspensions, and a 72% decrease in tardiness. The district-wide trends increases in these areas absent of positive behavior intervention supports. So taking action, what we are continuing to do is PBIS expansion, planning and implementation. 10 schools have completed year 1 of planning for PBIS and are ready for implementation of this August, which takes us to a total of 19 schools. So we're doubling the schools who will be successfully implementing PBIS, and I hope and I'm confident that I will stand before you in a year from now and show you that same downward trend. We're also exploring text-to-tip in collaboration with the different police departments that we work with. We're in the preliminary stages. In times past, we have shared that all of our campuses have anonymous reporting systems in place through counselors, through the front office. This came to light when we start looking at some of the things that are happening outside of the school day and within our community. So any type of criminal activity that would lend itself to drugs or break-in or thefts, then students and parents would have a way to anonymously report that. So again, in its preliminary stages, but we're looking to implement something so again we can allow individuals to come forward when somebody's in an unsafe situation. And then strengthen our mental health and student supports through, again, our tiered approach, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 interventions as they're listed there. Recommendations moving forward are listed here, and I thought that we made these all up. I thought we were just good in SUSD, but when you read the literature from the Arizona Department of Education, the National Association of Elementary and Secondary School Principals, the National Association of School Resource Officers, and the National Association of School Psychologists, it's very clear that we are on the right track with everything we've been doing on an integrated, multidisciplinary approach and focusing on that continuum of safety and prevention. With that, student services will continue to be effective and focus on effectiveness in everything that we do, effective thinking, using data and research to lead to solutions, taking a positive, not a deficit approach, effective action by implementing evidence-based or research-based programs or processes to solve problems or issues identified in effective thinking, effective relationships, supporting the relationships that will enhance the climate and culture in our school, and which is really the glue that holds our actions moving forward. And last but not least, effective accomplishment, evaluating successes in multiple ways and at many times in the process, feeding these data into effective thinking processes and what's not there, but of course celebrating the great works as was mentioned tonight and last week from Mojave Middle School. So with that, are there any questions, comments, directions from the governing board?
Thank you for a very good presentation, Ms. Echoes. Questions? Board Member Jackson.
This is Dr. Sackos. This is incredible work. I just want to say I've got an 8th grader at Mojave Middle School, and I see it in action every day. It's just a great atmosphere there, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Board Member Jackson.
I just have 2 questions. On the attendance, you know the high schools have the automatic phone call that goes to the home when your student's not there for a certain period. Do middle schools do that today?
Currently, to date, middle schools are calling on first period only, so we are going to be implementing period by period next year. So
just like the high schools.
Just like the high schools.
And then my second question is, in the Code of Conduct, does our language address the synthetic drugs, like spice, and it's all comprehensive of that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Board Member Brown.
I have an 8th grade student at Mojave, and I've seen it in action, and I just wanted to say what a great thing it is. Is there anything else? It's actually a wonderful, wonderful program, and I'm so excited. The people there have done I forgot her name. She's awesome. One of the counselors there, I guess, or something. But regardless, thank you very much for your hard work, and thank you, Mojave, and all you guys.
Thank you, Board Member Brown.
Any other, Board Member Perlberg.
I have a 7th grader at Mojave, so I've seen PBIS and working, and it's fabulous and wonderful, and love Dr. John Ballas and all his work as well. So thank you, guys. Keep it up.
Thank you, Board Member Perlberg. I'm glad we're doing a great job at Mojave. That's all I have to say. Mr. Osmussen, are you taking note?
Okay, I have no more lights. With the board's permission, can we just put this on consent agenda for our May meeting?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we would be remiss without recognizing one of our wonderful Mojave teachers sitting in the back he does a great job of rewarding the kids. And I always see him out there passing out things and patting them on the back. So thank you for everything you're doing there.
And he's a fine actor as well.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an action item on the grading committee recommendations for 2013-14.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and the public. Dr. Andy Forlis is going to present the work that our grading committee is doing and where we are moving forward with. I got to tell you, our grading committee has been tremendous. They have done more heavy lifting in a short amount of time than it's imaginable. And there is just great, exciting work that has come out of that committee that Andy is going to share with us this evening.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. I'd like to take a minute to recognize the members of the committee who are able to join us this evening. We've got principals and teachers. If you'd like to stand, Susan and Kim and Dave and Mitch and Karen and Kim and Katie, thank you, and Laura. I appreciate all of your work. Thank you. This has, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, this has been a learning committee. It's been a brave committee and a committee that has been focused on one thing, improving student opportunities for all of our kids. To provide a bit of background, on May 19th, I had the privilege of sharing with you, the governing board, the history, the work, and the recommendations of the SUSD grading committee. At that time, 3 pieces of feedback were shared. The first was to tighten up the recommendation for late work and redos and retakes, a genuine concern for teacher workload, and then the need to make sure that we communicate these recommendations and changes to our stakeholders. On April 2nd of 2013, I took those recommendations and that feedback to our grading committee, and they digested that, and what you will see this evening are their best and final recommendations. It's important to know that we operate within a K-12 system, and in a K-12 system, when we talk about grading, we are really talking about moving to a competency-based system where we want to be very sure that we know that what our kids understand, know, and are able to do by grade level. So you will see 9 categories of recommendations that increase academic rigor while decreasing variability in our practices across our district. And before you are those 9 categories. We're going to dig into each of the categories, and the format for the presentation is that in turquoise you will see what we are proposal within each grade band, grades K through 5, grades 6 through 8, and grades 9 through 12. And then in the gold section, that highlights what our current practice is, so you can see where the significant changes are throughout the presentation. What we are proposing in grades K through 5 is a standard-based report card in grades K through 5. And then the specificity is outlined that in grades K through 2, we will use a 1 through 3 rubrics grade scale. In grades 3 through 5, a 1 through 4 rubric grade scale. And you will see what the language of that grade scale, 1 needs support all the way to 4 is advanced demonstration or proficiency of that academic standard. It's also important to highlight at this time that the academic standards that we will be grading in a standards-based system are those aligned for the Common Core for English Language Arts and Mathematics. We will not have a standards-based system in social studies or science. We will continue to use the trimester system in grades K through 5. Parents will receive a report card each trimester. At our K through 8 schools, we have a bit of a different slightly different implementation based on the roll-up of kids within a K-8 system. And then you will see in gold that what we are proposing is different in that we had a standard-based environment in grades K through 2 across our school district. Some of our schools chose to jump on and include grades 3 through 5. There will be no change in how grades are calculated or what the report card looks like at our middle schools and high schools. Those will be A through F grades generated each quarter. How grades are determined is also something that is a significant change that you will see in turquoise. In grades K through 5, grades will be based on summative academic achievement assessments. So what is it that kids know at the end of the trimester will be that which is reported on the trimester report card. Most recent artifacts and evidence of learning will be used to determine grades. We went from a quarter-based system to a trimester system this current school year in order to give kids more time to demonstrate their understanding and proficiency to a standard. In grades 6 through 8, 78% of a student's grade will be generated by the assessments or their demonstrations of learning, 20 to 30% based on homework and coursework. Again, at ANLC, that is a K-8 school, they will be using the trimester system. Grades in our other schools, it will still be at the quarter system for middle school. In grades 9 through 12, we will have a running total throughout the semester. That gives us an accurate picture of where kids stand in terms of the demonstration of their proficiency towards the outcomes and standards of that class. 80%, or at least 80% of the student grade will be generated by assessment or demonstration of learning, and no more than 20% will come for checks for understanding. Again, moving to a proficiency, competency-based system, increasing that academic rigor. Final exam values will be consistent within content areas across our school district. You will see that everything I've just described in turquoise is very different from what we currently do. Currently, individual teachers are making decisions about how they determine a student's grade. Our department chairs came together in April, and they came to consensus after much conversation with the teachers within their departments, and they have come to consensus on the weight for the final examination for each of the content areas, starting with biology at 15%, all the way down to world languages at 20%. Here's an example of how a high school semester grade would be broken down if the high school final is identified as 20% of that grade. You will see that the grade incorporates the final exam at 10% and then 90% for assessments and checking for understanding. Another example is broken down for a course where they have chosen that 20% of the semester grade is based on the final exam. You will see in red, these are the areas that the committee responded to based on your feedback on March 19th, that our proposal for late work. One of the things that we would like to highlight in the elementary grades is that late work will be accepted within reasonable timelines established by the teacher. So that means that not all late work will be accepted, it's just when it is reasonable and it's one of those high impact assignments that really demonstrates whether or not the child has met the proficiency standard. Penalties for late work will definitely be included, but they will not be in the academic grade. They will be in the characteristics that support learning, which is a section of our standard-based report card. In grades 6 through 8, late work will be accepted with a fixed penalty that does not exceed 10% of the original score of the assignment. And in red is where there was tightening up of the language. Timelines and guidelines for acceptance will be consistent by grade level teams at each school. So for example, the 7th grade math teachers will have the exact same late work policy at that school by grade level, by content. The same is true at our high schools. Timelines and guidelines for acceptance of late work will be consistent within content areas. This time it will be across our school district. So it's not within schools at the high school, but it's across the entire school district. Our department chairs are coming together again on May 1st. Their charge is to provide to us what that consistency for late work will look like by course and by content, similar to what I just shared with you of the weighting of the final exam grade. It's important to highlight in red at the bottom that not all work will be accepted after the due date. We know that there are things in life that have an absolute deadline. Teachers and content teams across the school district and our high schools will identify what those are. Turning in late work is reflected in the conduct grade, which impacts the eligibility for honor roll. So a student could have straight A's, but if their work habits and their attention to assignment due dates is not on par, then they will have a reduced conduct grade, which makes them ineligible for honor roll. Policies for makeup work will follow the code of conduct as is outlined in the presentation before me. Currently, late work is up to the individual teachers. Some take it, some don't. Some take it all semester long. Some take it for 3 days. Some count it as 50% off the next day. We have a very inconsistent system currently. So our proposal is to tighten that up significantly. The same is true for redos, that multiple attempts for success are allowed as appropriate to demonstrate proficiency at the elementary levels. That continues into our middle schools, where repetitive opportunities or second chances for learning to measure the mastery of learning will be permitted at the teacher discretion. Again, we went a step further within the middle school subcommittee. Our administrators, our teachers spent quite a bit of time talking about this, and the tightened up language is that content area teams by grade level will designate which assignments will be allowed as redos and retakes, and they will establish timelines for that completion. So we know that not everything is allowable as a redo or a retake. It's those high impact lessons that definitely we want to make sure that our kids are demonstrating proficiency towards, so that we know that they're ready for the next level. In 9th through 12th grade, our teachers are encouraged to create a process. This is not an area that the high school subcommittee feels very strongly about, that we have a tight enough system. They want to encourage the great practices that teachers are currently putting forth with redos and retakes, but we do not have strong language that we have a system in place for next year. Again, our current practice is that we have individual teachers making decisions whether or not kids are able to redo or retake. We want to take a system-wide approach that begins in kindergarten and moves its way through a K-12 system. Not all assessments will be allowed as redos and retakes. Teams will determine the eligible assessments based on the impact and significance of that assessment. Assessments, it's important to note here, include projects, portfolios, essays, tests, and performances. So it would be one way to explain how a redo or a retake happens. Let's just say in a math course, a student takes a math test. If they did not do well, they receive feedback. They can take an alternative assessment. We have our instructional materials have exam generators, test generators. The teacher can go in and make another test aligned to those same standards. But in terms of an essay, a project, or a portfolio, students get feedback. They have the opportunity to take the feedback and make that assignment that much better. In terms of extra credit, you will see the proposals again in turquoise. At the elementary schools, we will not be encouraging or accepting extra credit. What we will do is encourage students to redo the assignments that they did not do well the first time. In grades 6 through 8, extra credit will be allowed as meaningful extensions to increase the learning of the course standards, and that it will be accepted for no more than 5% of the academic grade. Again, instead of an extra credit puzzle, instead of doing an additional assignment, the encouragement will be that kids can go back and redo an assignment as that extra opportunity to demonstrate what they know. In grades 9 through 12, we will not be accepting extra credit. We want our kids to be working to the rigor of the assignments in which they are given. It's also important to note at this time we need to be thinking about that guideline for determining grades. At least 80% of the grade at the high school level is determined based on assessments and demonstration of knowing. So we want to make sure that we're giving our kids opportunities and supporting them to our rigorous expectations. Currently, as you will see in gold, that's determined by our individual teachers this school year. Our recognition of student achievement beginning in grades K through 5, we will not be determining grade point average because we have a standard-based system. So that means that we will not be identifying the achievement of our kids based on a GPA in grades K through 5. The grading committee next year will continue to study what might that look like in a consistent way. Currently, it's up to each site to determine how they recognize student achievement. In grades 6 through 8, we will maintain honor roll, which is determined by a GPA, and the conduct graded each quarter. Again, that late work area, students who are not turning in their work late, the area that we want to make sure that we communicate with students and families is that's a conduct grade, that's a behavior grade, and that has a negative impact on honor roll. Same is true at the high school. And you will see that the significant change really is at the elementary currently, but on the consent agenda you voted that we would eliminate GPA for elementary, so we will no longer use GPA to identify honor roll. Communication of student learning. So how are we going to let our students and our parents understand how their kids are learning? At the elementary grade level, the Synergy gradebook will be used by all teachers beginning in the second trimester. This is highlighted here in red. Our original proposal that we shared with you on March 19th indicated that our elementary teachers would begin the elementary gradebook the first day of school next year. In response to teacher workload, we wanted to make sure that they have a trimester to learn the gradebook and to have plenty of coaching and support before they actually have to implement that. So we've given them the first 12 weeks of school. Teachers regularly communicate student progress with families. That is an expectation of all of our teachers. Currently, the Synergy gradebook is optional at the elementary. Parent view is turned off in grades K through 4. And teachers regularly communicate student progress with their families. In grades 6 through 8 and grades 9 through 12, the book will be used by all teachers, and it will be updated weekly. Parent view is turned on, so there will be that regular weekly reporting. Same expectations for teachers to use the grade book and update their grades. We have delayed the mandatory use of the elementary synergy gradebook from the first to second trimester to allow more time for teacher training and to reduce that workload up front for teachers making the transition to that gradebook. Our training schedule, I've highlighted in red the changes that we have made based on the feedback that we received on March 19th that the grading committee felt very comfortable with, is that we have 5 digital modules by grade level, grade bands, elementary, middle, and high school, that our teachers are viewing these electronic modules to learn about these grading practices. The thoughtfulness of the committee in response to your concerns about, and our concerns about workload, is we reduce the number of training modules from 5 to 4 at the middle school and the high school level. The reason being that we are not going to mandate any change in the distortion of the 100-point grade scale for next year, so we've taken that module off their workload. And then again, the delay in the elementary grade book implementation to the second trimester, and that begins November 6th of next year. And in response to parent education, our grading practices have the beginnings, and the communication to our community and our stakeholders has begun. Dr. Peterson's April newsletter to families and to our community indicates that we are tackling this idea of grading practices, and there is a link to the chart of all of the proposed chart of all of the things I've just shared with you. That's to raise level of awareness. We've had newspaper articles. We've had at least 2 newspaper articles in the Arizona Republic raising that community level of awareness. Information will be included with the elementary report cards that will be sent home May of 2013. So what our final recommendations are, we will make sure that when kids take their report card home at the end of this year, it will preview for families what they can be expecting in the 2013-14 school year. We will be sending home information to our middle school and high school families, because the majority of our middle and high school students access the report cards electronically, so we know that we need to communicate with our families to let them know about the proposed changes. Information is posted to our district and school websites. Informational videos will be included in our digital backpack with our back to school campaign. We are beginning the work of parent-friendly videos to explain what this looks like, making connections to the real world and to lots of analogies and metaphors to help our parents understand this. Information will be included in our back to school mailings, and we will conduct 10 informational meetings for our community 1 hour prior to each of Dr. Peterson's evening office hours, so that we will begin, say, 5:30 to 6:30 or 5 to 6. Will be information about grading practices, and then we'll go into office hours so that we can be mindful of our community's time and effort, and that we have them all in one place and make sure that we've got lots of time for conversation. As I shared with you on March 19th, the grading committee will continue its work. We're not done. We've done a lot. We're proud of the work we've done. We've learned together. We've supported each other. And we feel very brave about our recommendations, but we're going to continue to roll up our sleeves and make it that much better. At the elementary level, the focus for the committee of next year will be to revise and refine our up to 36-page handbook of grading practices for elementary teachers based on their feedback. And that we will continue to look at how do we properly recognize student achievement at the elementary level in a standards-based environment. At the middle level, we will research and develop a grade scale that resolves the distortion of the current 100-point grade scale. We will take a look at the use of the electronic grade book and report cards to best support our recommendations and philosophies. We have a current weekly meeting with EduPoint, our vendor for our grade book and report card, and we're continually giving them information about how we need the tool to respond to the best practices that our teachers, administrators, and parents have invested in. At the high school level, the work of the high school subcommittee will mirror that of the middle school, but we're going to add one more task to them, and that will be, or 2 more tasks. The first additional task will be refine a system for redos and retakes, and then the development of criteria for weighted grades in high school. Currently, we know that our AP and IB courses are regulated at a national and at IB international level, but we do not have consistent criteria on how we earn a weighted grade in an honors course. So that will be the work of the grading committee to have some consistent language. I've shared lots of information. I want to just really highlight that we are making brave steps to increase academic rigor for our kids. and that every decision, every recommendation that we put before you is genuinely based on the best interest of our kids. So with that, I would love to answer any of your questions.
Dr. Forlis, and thank you for doing the current proposed. That was very helpful for me, at least. Board members.
Yes, I wanted to thank you very much. This is one of the most thorough and thoughtful processes that I've witnessed in the district. Just a personal perspective here. I see how much change everybody's going through, and I think one of the things that all of us as board members have understand is it's the change that ends up taking up a lot of our time and energy trying to inform. And so I'm thinking that, you know, that this might be something that we want to do in increments and very thoughtfully. One of the things I was trying to explain the difference to my adult son and daughter and husband, who are all very much in love with, you know, the A's. I got all A's or whatever, and the grade point average thing, and trying to explain the difference. And it was much easier to do once I saw the report cards and could show them the difference between this and the old one. And so even though they initially were very kind of argumentative about any benefits to going to standards-based, when they got done reading the content and then they looked at this, I said, so what does this tell you? And they agreed. This doesn't tell the parent very much about where their child stands academically and where they might be struggling. And as my son also pointed out, something like this, if a student needs a tutor, this is wonderful for parents because they're not just blindly paying for extra tutoring when they can pinpoint exactly where the student might be struggling. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to get the message out in a positive way. One of the things that I was wondering was whether this might be given at the beginning. I know you were talking about sending it out in May, but at the beginning of the year, because I think the parents, or at the beginning of each trimester, whatever, I think that parents would look at this like a syllabus. Kids might not understand it that way, but at least they know what their expectations are ahead of time. And so this gives them goals to work for. And even though I know that the teachers are really good about putting their lesson plans and their objectives on the board and telling the students ahead of time, this can reinforce that process that they're already doing. Can you tell the board about what kind of direct or indirect costs that professional development for this might have?
I appreciate the question, Board Member Sneed. The indirect and the direct cost, all the professional development will be done in-house, so that the cost is time. And the cost is the investment in that change process that you spoke about. So all of the grading modules that we have created have been done in-house by teachers on assignment who have participated in each of the subcommittees of the grading committee. So they've taken the information, they've created the modules. We own Moodle, which is a learning management platform. We've posted them within Moodle, everything that we already own to be able to share that. Our administrators are leading the conversations by module. The modules are approximately 10 to 15 minutes in length. So the professional development, this upfront boost that we're providing in preparation for May 8th's early release day, all of that has been done in-house with the cost of time. We will not have completed the professional development by May 8th. It is the charge of those who supervise our principals and provide instructional leadership is that grading will be the professional development plan and conversation for next year as the overarching understanding. As you mentioned, the standard-based report card provides the syllabus for families about what you're going to learn. That report card and that system with that handbook will provide the professional development for our teachers throughout the school year at the elementary level. At the middle school and the high school level, that idea of teachers coming together to reduce variability in their expectations and how they report student learning, that will be the focus. Currently, we use our $301 to compensate our teachers for 36 hours of collaborative work. That collaborative work will be focused around grading practices. And that's currently expended to them now.
Okay, so that's done. That was going to be one of my questions. You know, what time is going to be set aside for that professional development within the different departments and grade levels and such to further define what the expectations are on a departmental level?
Our, at the middle school and the high school level, our principals are working to provide common planning time by content and or grade level of our teachers or within integrated houses. So it's depending on how their staffing is shaking out. So they will have common plan time, and during the common plan time, much of the conversation will be dedicated to grading practices. And then in addition, we compensate our teachers for 36 hours of professional development of working collaboratively in professional learning communities. That's how they earn their $301, the pay for performance portion.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I noticed looking at the different grade levels was that pretty much across the board, the standards for arts and phys ed and music are the same. And I'm wondering, how do the state standards for these subjects, because, you know, I know people that spent years helping the Department of Ed to develop those state standards. How do they fit within this by grade level?
Our focus is specific to the report card. We will not expand upon the other content areas such as the arts for a standard-based report card, but it's certainly those standards are woven into our curriculum maps that our teachers use to design instruction and to design assessments of our kids. And as we have moved to implement the new teacher evaluation system with the pre and post assessment, our teachers in the non-AIM subject areas have those common end of course assessments aligned to those standards. So we have common end of course assessments at different grade levels, and this was our first year of creating 65 tests, that there's common grade levels. So for example, for the arts, 5th grade, 7th grade, and that's a focus. So the standards regulate what we do for assessment of our kids. It just won't show up on the next year's standard-based report card that we're proposing.
Okay. I guess that might be something that we want to address with parents, so that if they have a first grader, a third grader, and fifth grader, it doesn't look like just because the standard is written the same way that they're doing exactly the same thing, you know.
The level of specificity
Exactly.
and the level of difficulty over time of the standard. I understand.
One of the questions that I had for this, do you foresee that this sort of a reporting system will shorten that gap between what our grades show and what our test scores show?
That is one of our primary goals, is that we have a tighter alignment between what our report card grades tell us about student learning as compared to a competency-based assessment such as a benchmark or a state assessment. We should have a much closer gap than we currently do.
And will benchmark scores be reflected in this at all, or are they just for teachers to assess, you know, what areas their class might need more instruction?
The guidance that we've given to our teachers about benchmarks is it's dependent upon, the benchmark can be formative, so to inform instruction, or it can be summative to assess what they have already taught. Because of the pacing for different teachers are at different places within their pacing, if they know that they have taught everything that is on that benchmark, then that can be used as a summative score. But if they're not quite sure that they've taught everything to a high level of proficiency, then that should be used as a formative to inform their instruction. So it depends on how they're using that data. Will depend on, we've recommended as a simple rule not to include benchmark scores as an academic grade, because they are truly to progress monitor.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Brown.
Now, this may come as a great surprise, but I don't have a doctorate in education. But what I do have is a great trust and in the people in this room on doing the best. I have great faith in that it's always for the kids. And with that said, you know, I know there's a certain 8th grader that couldn't pull grades with a tractor. And sometimes that's because maybe there wasn't a continuity in the grading. Maybe there wasn't just something that made sense at the time that made life better. Because I look at this certain little rascal and I watch the momentum change. You know, and that's brutal to watch. You know, I'm on a high, I'm on a high, I'm on a high, boom, burst that bubble. This appears to provide continuity. This takes out, I remember Jennifer Peterson talking about, we're not giving extra credit for bringing tissues to class. Let's get that out of the mix. Thank you very much. It reminds me of Dr. Eric Meyer talking about every kid in school can tell you who's the hard teacher and who's the easy teacher. Boy, I hope you get this person. Yeah. Takes it out of the mix. Provides that continuity. I just want to thank you much for your hard work. And I kind of would go along with Bonnie in that I've said in the past, you know, perfection gets in the way of productivity. Maybe this isn't perfect out of the gate. Maybe we just start this with the expectations of knowing it will morph and get better and get better. Like everybody else, we're concerned about workload, we're concerned about change, but I think it is important to make that first big step, and I thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Board Member Perleberg and then Board Member Jackson.
I agree with those statements very much. Seems like a very important step. It's not perhaps coming at the greatest time, but it's got to, I guess, start stepping. So I guess a couple questions have come into mind. One of them is the thought process for the late work. It seems the middle schools kind of have a lot of, and elementary schools have a lot of on-site control in those guidelines, and where it's kind of taken out of the high school hands. What's the thought process behind that?
I appreciate that question, Board Member Perlberg. When we look at our high schools, we now move into a whole nother realm of earning credits that are, the credits, GPA, are designed to put students on a level playing field as they look to move to university systems, graduation requirements, property rights called diplomas, those kinds of things. So the idea is that if you were going to take the Algebra 2 class at Coronado High School, those same set of systems should be in place for that Algebra 2 class at Desert Mountain High School. And so we want to make sure when kids are competing for scholarships, for competitive entrance into our colleges and universities, that we need a high school system that tells us this is how we know kids have earned that particular credit and that particular grade with that particular GPA. So the stakes become much higher in high school, so we need some uniformity across all of our high schools.
That's a great answer. Thank you. To speak about one school in particular that has come to our attention is Cheyenne Traditional has expressed that feeling of, well, so much of this is great, they're right on board, but they felt like the actual report card needed to maybe look a little different. I wondered how that was being addressed and how soon that could be taken a look at.
In a long-standing history of Cheyenne being a school of choice, that when Cheyenne became a school of choice, one of the hallmarks or the non-negotiables of the school, or the pillars that they called it at the time, was that they would have a separate grading system. So they currently, and we are not having any conversation about changing their grade scale. Their grade scale currently is 93 to 100% is an A. That is not true at any of our other schools. So they will maintain that. What Cheyenne did this year is they did implement a standards-based report card in grades K through 2. They did not have that 93% to 100% in grades K through 2, so they went with the district report card. Next year, they're feeling comfortable to roll that to kindergarten through 3rd grade, so you'll see in that turquoise section under report cards that Cheyenne is only going to K3, while our other elementary grades are going K5. So because they are a school of choice, and that is one of their core value systems about their report card, we have not pushed that envelope. So they can maintain their autonomy as a
Right.
school of choice.
And so they'll have obviously a lot of control in what their report cards look like going maybe 3 through 8. Is that correct? Or
Correct, and you will see
it
that we're
may
not
look a
making any
little
changes.
different.
Right, we're not making any
Yeah.
changes to the 6 through 8 report card in any of our schools. The report card looks the same. The significant difference is K-5, and at Cheyenne, they feel they're feeling comfortable K-3. They still would like to keep some traditional methodologies with their 4-5 report card, and we've honored that as a school of choice. The same with ANLC as a school of choice.
Okay, and the final question, kind of back to motivation, which we discussed this at the last meeting. I noticed with the late work, and obviously honor roll, eligibility for honor roll that's very, very important for a lot of students. And they would work at keeping that conduct grade up for that. Where is kind of the motivation for those who maybe the eligibility of honor roll isn't that big of a concern, but where are the consequences for possibly those students in this process?
And within the late work policy, there is a penalty for turning in your work late. It is a consistent penalty of no more than 10% of the original scored item. At the middle school, no more than, will not change a passing grade to a failing grade at the high school. Currently, we have teachers that, if you turn in your work up to they have 5 days to turn in their work, they will get 50% credit. Or some that say, I don't take any of it. So it's just tightening up those policies. And we know that there are things in life, you cannot turn your work in late. Yesterday was April 15th, taxes, you can apply for extension ahead of time. So that's also something that our teachers will be working on is if kids know and they're budgeting their time that they're not going to make that deadline, perhaps they talk to the teacher up front and say, may I have an extension? How does that become part of a late work cycle? So it's really mirroring more around what are those non-negotiable assignments that no way in the world will we take late. The final exam, we don't do again. It's you do it, that's when you do it. A final project, oftentimes there's no opportunity to redo them. But many assignments can be turned in late. Some of the conversations our department chair are having at the content area in the high school are that late work will be accepted up until the unit assessment for that particular time period. So if we're studying chapter 7 in math, any of the projects up to unit 7, those could be turned in late, but not after that assessment. We're going to move forward with new learning. So those are the dialogue and the conversation that's happening right now. On May 1st, our department chairs are going to come together. They're going to come to consensus and say this is what this looks like for our content area across our 5 high schools.
Very much.
Dr. Forlos, I just wanted to say, as Bonnie said, incredible, comprehensive, thorough work on this plan. It's so impressive. And I wanted to say we seem to be mired lately in so much budget crisis that we're in right now, and it's a lot of tough decisions. And it's great to see that we as a district are moving forward to continue to excel academically in spite of all the problems that we're currently facing as a district. And I think the work that Dr. Sackos has done, the PBIS, is wonderful. The work that your team has done with this grading, standard-based reporting and grading system, I think this is a real proud moment for this district, that we don't, just because we are slugging through some very difficult decisions with our budget, we continue to work very hard to become a better district academically, teach our children to a high level. And anyway, I'm very proud of this whole team, your team, and where we are. And considering, I just want to say, when things get tough, we're not just falling back, and we're moving forward with that, as a district to become better and better. In fact, the best district in the state. And thank you for your hard work.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Comment and some questions. First, regarding the elementary standards with the standard-based report cards. I've had the personal experience with my 5th grader attending a charter school that uses standard-based report cards. And I have absolutely seen an increase in her motivation by knowing exactly what she is being assessed on. And one of the things that you and I discussed, and I want to ask the question again, will there be standard-based rubrics along the way that then feed right into the report card? Because what she does in her mind is she does that one writing assignment and she gets a meets, and then she does the next one and she gets a meets plus, and she starts averaging that in her head, and so she's anticipating what is going to be on her report card, and she's generally right. So, she's motivated throughout the entire semester. So are we going to be assessing the elementary kids one way and then all of a sudden they get a standard-based report card that's different? Or is it going to be similar along the entire way?
Madam President, that's a great question. As we talk about, one of the significant changes is our elementary teachers moving to a standard-based day-to-day grading system. So instead of saying you have 9 out of 10 points on your spelling test, it is now how much on the rubric of 1 to 4 based on grade level, or 1 to 3 at the younger grade levels, where are you in terms of your understanding of spelling? And that rubric being 4 is advanced, 1 needs improvement, that kids understand where they are and what they need to do differently. An analogy that we use, in the common world, we go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, you're not feeling well, we just did your physical exam, you're a B- today. Oh, I'm a B-, all right, well, can you specifically tell me, what do I need to do to get better to become an A? Well, I need you to cut out some of cholesterol, and you need to be working on adding more proteins and more exercise, so very specific. So when kids understand the specificity based on that rubric system from needs improvement to a 4 of advanced, absolutely. So that then becomes the work of those professional learning communities coming together with evidence of student work and saying, what do we believe to be closest to that criteria of a 1, 2, 3, or 4? And so the criteria, the rubric of the report card becomes that criteria. Then we can take it to another level of looking at a science experiment. What does the rubric of the science experiment look to the 1, 2, 3, 4? Writing, math, and so on.
And so will that roll initially, or is that still to come?
Still to come. We're going to get started with change. We're going to take change in steps. Many of our teachers are already doing beautiful work like that. So we're going to take those teacher leaders who've been really brave and learned about this, and we're going to celebrate their successes, have them share the things that they're doing. And at the same time, our elementary principals will be learning a whole lot more so they can lead those grade level discussions to say that I know that we're working on a friendly letter right now. I'd like everybody to bring their samples of friendly letters, and let's take a look at them according to the rubric. What feedback do we need to give to our kids? What are we doing well? What do we need to really stretch for? What other examples do we need to be using for kids, and so on?
Okay, great. As excited as I am about the elementary standards-based report card, I do have a concern on the high school and the middle school. And I talked about it. And it really kind of zeroes in on redos and retakes of tests, because I understand the value of redos and retakes on essays, on projects, but where I just can't get there with you is redos and retakes on exams, particularly if we're allowing, or could allow, if a teacher or teacher group decide to, an unlimited amount of redos and retakes on possibly the same exam over and over. And so first I just want to ensure that I'm understanding you correctly, and then have just a little dialogue about that.
So for clarification, the expectation of redos and retakes as a systematic practice within our district will be focused at grades K through 8. We're not mandating or pushing that envelope at the high school. We are encouraging it. We have teachers who are currently doing this. If they're currently doing it, they're finding success, great, but we're really going to focus on what are we doing K-5 in that standard-based environment, then what are we doing in grades 6 through 8, and it's the content team by grade level making decisions on which assignments do we allow as a retake, and what are those guidelines for that. So I would anticipate that some of our math teachers might say, I'm going to do a redo or a retake, but we have an exam generator, so we're going to create a different assessment that measures those same standards that we give as the retake. That would be in math, because that's a tool and a system that is specific to our math adoption.
Right, but But
in
what-
language arts.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, and in language arts, that's why the committee recommended that it's content grade level specific. So it could be in language, so let's just say 8th grade language arts. They know that the kids took a vocabulary test and it was really, they really struggled. Say, you know what? It wasn't that big of a deal. It's not a high impact. It's not a do or die kind of a thing of this vocabulary assignment. We're not going to have them redo or retake that particular one. That's not going to work. We're working towards a larger project. That's the one that we will allow for the redo and retake. So it won't be all of them that will be allowed. So that's the work of administrators working with their teacher teams to help make really good decisions that are consistent by grade level and content area.
But I'm not hearing that we're going to cap. We talked about on late work, for example, and you'd have to pull the slide up because I forget, but late work won't count, or you won't be penalized more than 10% or something like that. I'm not hearing that on redos or retakes that you can gain, you could gain the maximum points. So if, let's say you got a 50 on a math test, take it again, you could get a 70. Take it again, you can get an 80. Take it again, you can get a 95. Take it again, you can get 100. I'm not hearing that there are any guardrails or parameters on the number of times you can redo or retake a test. We're leaving it up to the teachers.
We're leaving it up to teacher teams, and we have not, the recommendation of the committee was that we do not put ourselves in a box to say that this is the only way that we can do it. They believe it's too new. And so as they continue to work through it and figure out what's really working and showing number one, maintaining motivation and increasing rigor, what are those practices that really work best? So the conversation was not about, okay, so you can only do it once, you can only do it twice. At the middle school, that will be school-specific by content grade level. At the high school, late work will be regulated across the district by content area. So some of the language that you're speaking about will come out more at the high school level than it will the middle school.
Yeah, and I guess my concern is, particularly in middle school, we're losing students because their families want more rigor. So they're going to private schools and charter schools to get more rigorous, a more rigorous experience. And so that is a type of kid, and I have that type of kid. And I did go to a private school with her that was allegedly more rigorous, and it is. And, you know, her experience, it really bothers me in this discussion because recently she took a math test, and she's the kind of kid that will study and study and study, and she wants that A. And she took a math test, and for some reason that was kind of a quirky reason, which she didn't understand at the time, it was legitimate, but she didn't understand it. Her friend took it, got a 50, was allowed to retake it, and got a 95. My daughter was completely demotivated by that experience. Why should I work this hard when my neighbor, my friend, can take it twice and get almost the same grade I got? And so I'm really worried that we're going to lose a certain group of our students because they're not going to perceive this redo process as a rigorous process. And I think, you know, we talked about shifting, not accepting the extra credit and et cetera, but I feel like we've just shifted it to, at the high school level at least, 80% of what calculates, because that's an exam, an assessment can be redone or retaken, and now it's 80% of your grade. So I feel like we've just almost moved the problem to a bigger portion of the grade. I'm just, you and I have discussed it. You can't, college courses, you can't redo and retake a final exam. Job applications, you can't redo and retake those. Job interviews, you can't redo and retake them. So I think we're setting a very poor expectation of what real life is like for our teens, our middle schoolers, and our high school. Having said that, then, I had asked if we could split this into 3 action items, an elementary school action item, a middle school, and a high school. And I was told that we couldn't because there was some kind of connectivity among the 3. And so would you like to?
Yes, I'd like to be able to explain that. The request to split to 3 action items was done. I didn't have time to get with the committee to get feedback from the committee. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is the process and the integrity and the transparency of the committee and their very thoughtful work. So there was not time to get with them and get their feedback because this represents the work of 30 plus people. Separating, this is a K-12 system, and so when you talk about a standards-based system of proficiency to a standard, that the proficiency works up. So if you take a look at a standards-based environment K-5, building this understanding of what does proficiency-based in teaching, learning, and assessment look like. It has to work in a K-12 system. We would love to have stronger language around redos and retakes at the middle school and the high school, the distortion of the 100-point grade scale, but we're just not there yet at the middle school and the high school. Standard-based teaching and learning, standard-based report cards has removed the distortion of the 100-point grade scale at the elementary. That's our beginning to understand what this looks like, making transition from 5th grade into 6th grade. Another transition point is that taking a look at our guidelines for what we see as homework, coursework, and I will go back to the slide that talks about determining grades. When we take a look at how we determine grades, beginning in K-5, we're focusing on assessment, that end assessment. We move that to middle school, focusing the primary portion of the grade comes from the end of the assessment into high school. So you will see that there's that trajectory that continues that same learning, but we change it to the environment of the construct of that school. So in middle school, we've got kids with multiple teachers. We go to high school and we have something called GPA, we have credits, we have graduation requirements, and so on. So this would identify what that continuum looks like over time. So to separate that without speaking to the committee, I was very uncomfortable to do that.
And then earlier in work study, we talked about additional potential savings with TOAs. If this action item is approved tonight, will that eat into any potential TOA savings for next year? So will we be using M&O TOAs to continue to flush this out and work through this next year that otherwise could be used to close our budget deficit?
The instructional technology TOAs are responsible for the implementation of the capital override products. Synergy Gradebook is one of them. They're paid out of the capital override dollars, and they will continue to support the work of the gradebook in addition to lots of other things, Discovery of the tech book and all the instructional technology that they do. So they will be the primary heavy lifters on the district level support. We currently we are budgeted, we've gone from 5 to 4 instructional technology coaches. They are part of the budget, not paid out of M&O. It's through capital override that they will be providing the training of the tool. Our curriculum teachers on assignment paid out of the Title IIA budget will continue to do the work of the curriculum instruction and assessment alignment to make sure that this has a huge impact, not just on the report card, but on the day-to-day teaching and learning in classrooms.
No M&O TOAs?
Absolutely no
Okay.
M&O TOA supporting any of this. The only, we have reduced the 0.5 TOA for assessment that was paid out of M&O that would have been part of this project for next year, but that's not budgeted for next year.
And is it, well, I guess I just like to say the vote I cast tonight is no reflection of the work and the effort that's been put into this. It's simply, it's a concern about redos and retakes on exams. It comes down to that. I think that's going to be, it's going to be perceived by many as a less rigorous education.
And I will
And I know,
share-
and I understand that, you know, it's good for kids, and I know you have your opinion. I'm just sharing what I'm hearing from parents.
And Madam President, we hear you. We will be taking that concern back to the committee to have the dialogue with them and again to our teachers. Because again, sometimes it's truly a matter of what kids learn, and sometimes kids learn in a little longer time, and they may need a little longer time for that. So we'll take that concern to the committee and come back with, you know, their final adjustments. Again, we need to try this, and then we know that we're going to have to do some monitoring adjustment along the way.
And that is the goal of the committee for 2013-14 is continue to refine redos and retakes as we learn all the literature that we read, the practice that we hear from other school districts that have been brave enough to do this. Really talk about when we allow kids not to demonstrate proficiency, that's when we dummy down. So if we allow kids to earn D's and F's and don't force them to demonstrate proficiency, that's where we get ourselves stuck. So.
And I would just, I see the other side of that same coin. I think we're dumbing this down by allowing kids to redo and retake as many times as they want to until they can get 100%. It's just a difference. We see the same thing very differently.
The committee meets April 30th, so I'll be sure to share the feedback.
So, Board Member Snead.
Yes. one of the things that has always concerned me is that I think we lose a lot of kids when they don't, and by losing them I mean they drop out, when they don't master basic skills that later on are built upon. And so I think a lot of times we gauge curriculum according to grading periods, and we force all the learning into a particular grading period. And if the student can squeak by without really understanding fractions, or might get just a good enough grade to understand the fractions, and then we move on to something else without asking them to do redos and retakes, we're missing an educational opportunity that's going to form a basis for all of their math learning from that point on. And so, and I think even good students, really good students, I'm going to include myself in that one, I learn from my mistakes. And I think one of the biggest disservices that we can do, and one of the big complaints that I hear from high school kids is, well, I found out that I missed an A by 2 points, but nobody will tell me what questions I missed. I have no idea what concept I didn't get. And so I think when you're looking at standards-based learning, the important thing is, have they learned the standards, not so much how long did it take for it to learn. I mean, we're here to teach, and we're here to make sure that students know basic or higher materials, and to let them just kind of breeze through or accept the D or the F, and then move on is truly doing them a disservice. And knowing teachers the way that I do, I think that I trust that they will be able to find a way to make this fair and not de-incentivize their best students. Whether it's to take some points off, I mean, this takes away some of the competitiveness over, did you get a 98, did you get an 87? It's more about, where is my learning occurring right now? And that's a big focus change for parents to understand. But I think it serves each individual student better, and I think it will help us identify the students that consistently exceed the norm for their grade level, and so that we can identify them and offer them services. They might not be gifted, but they might be academically talented or academically advanced in some areas, and I think this will also, help keep some of those kids from being bored, because we'll be able to identify that. So there are, like anything else, there's pluses and minuses, but I think if we trust our professionals to take a lot of these things into consideration, then it's our job as a board and as a staff and as the SUSD family to communicate to those critics that might say that the rigor is going down.
One of the beauties of having a child in a charter school and one in a private school is that I can search out best practices and compare and contrast. And as I stated at the beginning, the elementary standards-based report card I think is a huge win. I've seen it work, and I say kudos to that, and absolutely supportive of that. However, in the private school, I did have a conversation with their principal and asked, do you allow redos and retakes? And she said, her answer was absolutely. We encourage, if a kid didn't perform well in an exam and they want to come in and take that exam again, we encourage it. But we don't let them count it towards their grade, because we have standards and expectations of our school, and our parents have standards and expectation of a certain amount of rigor. And so I'm not saying don't allow the kids to do it. I'm saying cap the amount of credit they can earn from redoing and retaking, or max or cap the amount of times they could continue to take the same test over and over. And then with respect to trusting our professionals, my fear is these are the same professionals who were giving extra credit for bringing in boxes of tissue paper. So, I do trust many of them, but we're not talking about a completely different group of people. So I just wanted to respond to that too, to those two.
I just wanted to make sure I did understand in your rollout here. it looks like to me, middle school, high school, that with regards to redos and retakes, there is still a lot of discussion laid out, expected in the rollout as well. I'm assuming these issues could be addressed. Also, have our teachers and our committee look at where in charter schools, public schools, wherever other schools that have this process, where the faults may lie and how things could maybe be avoided, such as this issue. I mean, there's nothing carved in stone here on this plan for tonight, right?
No, there's nothing carved in stone, Board Member Perlberg. What is carved in stone as the recommendation is that we will continue to research and understand this, but that we will offer redos and retakes at the K-5 and 6-8. 6-8, it will be determined by content, grade level, specific teams. So 6th grade math, we'll have at one school, we'll have the same system within that school. What we will be continuing to do in the 13-14 school year within the committee is to refine the process and get to the things that Board Member Kirby talked about to say, oh, I'm learning. We really need to cap this. This will be a recommendation moving forward. The high school, until we've done this in a large enough group, we have individual teachers who choose to do this. It is part of much of our CTE courses are built on redoing and retaking. Robotics is redoing and retaking. So when we go to we offer many courses, world language courses, opportunities to redo and retake oral language presentations to get better based on feedback. So we, as a committee, we don't feel comfortable enough putting very strict parameters on it until we've opened up this practice and started to learn about it in a larger way. So the recommendation is that the 2013-14 school year be dedicated to refining redos and retakes at the middle level and jumping into it at the high school level.
Any other comments or questions? Board Member Sneed.
I just wanted to clarify. My comments were geared toward the idea that it would be a consensus and not individuals that would be making this decision. That when you bring the groups together, and in the case of a high school, it would be the whole district, departments for the whole district. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, like any other group, you're going to have some that really push for very low standards and some that push for very high standards. But when, you know, when I've seen professionals come together and they're all dedicated for the same thing, usually we end up with great results.
All right. Okay then, do I have a motion to approve revisions, grading committee recommendations for 2013-14?
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Brown. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Board Member Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote no. Motion passes 4-1. Okay, future action. Do I have any requests from the board for future action? Board Member Sneed.
Just the, I would like the board members to start thinking about what kind of legislation they might want to propose to ASBA in May. I think everyone got an email talking about that with the new format. And if not, we'll make sure you get it so you can look at it and then bring proposals forward. I know with the new board members, generally what we look at are big topics, things like maintaining local control, and trying to oppose unfunded mandates.
It changed a little bit. They're looking now for short-term goals, long-term goals, so.
Right, so they're tightening it up.
Okay, and that will be on the May
1st special meeting. We're having a special meeting, which is all listed dates that Board President Kirby will be reading.
Right, but
so I'm going to add it to that special meeting. We have a lot of information discussion scheduled for our May 14th meeting.
Is that going to be enough time for you to get your feedback?
Enough time. I looked at
If the board members have something and they want to bring it prepared, or
So we
email it to me, and I can put it together in a format that everybody can look at ahead of time, so we can save time at the meeting.
Okay. May 1st, that will go on that agenda. Okay, any governing board reports? Member Brown.
I had a great opportunity last Thursday, although I wanted to be at the budget committee, really. But there I was at Tonalea. I had to fill in reading a book, and boy, was it fun. But, you know, something struck me. There were over 200 people there. There was engaged parents, engaged teachers, engaged administration, wonderful children, and it was kind of a kick in the head. We are here for the kids. Everybody is here for the kids. We love our Scottsdale schools, and as the public goes and discusses how we can make budget cuts, I think we need to start from a place, I love my school. Let's move forward, but I love my school. And we are an A district. Let's move forward with the idea we are an A district. I think we have been more than accountable for what we've been doing and what we've been spending. And I just would like to frame the conversation moving forward with those thoughts in mind, because I read, what's it again, what I read?
Skippy Jones.
Skippy Jones. Boy, was it fun. Wooly bully. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Anyone else have a report? Okay, dates of upcoming meetings. Wow, okay. Friday, April 19th, 10 a.m. Monday, April 22nd, 9 to 11. That is a special governing board meeting for budget and override. Wednesday, April 24th, from 6 to 8 p.m. will be our community forum to discuss the budget at the Granite Reef Senior Center, followed by another community forum on April 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Via Linda Senior Citizen Center, followed by 2 more budget meetings to discuss budget and possible override. Wednesday, May 1st, 10 to 12, and Wednesday, May 8th, 10 to 12. Tuesday, May 14th, we have a study session followed by a regular governing board meeting. That study session is scheduled to start at 4. And then Monday, May 20th, and Tuesday, May 28th, again, we have special governing board meetings for M&O budget and possible override. And then also, if necessary, June 5th, we have another special governing board meeting to discuss budget and override. All right, Board Member Brown.
It just occurred to me, and tomorrow night, Thursday, doing a forum with Dr. Peterson and myself at Shepherd of the Hills Church to just talk about state funding, local impacts, and engagement by all those wonderful parents. Get out there. 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 5524 East Lafayette Boulevard. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.